It just gives the live stream a second to load.
Okay, I'll wait until you give me a thumbs up and then we'll go forward.
Perfect.
All right, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this special council meeting of April 17th, 2020 to order. I'd like a motion for someone to adopt the agenda. Just raise your hand. Councillor Brooks Hill, seconded by Councillor Rind. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of the special council meeting of April 8th. Does someone want to move that? Just raise your hand. Councillor Rind, Councillor Brooks Hill. All in favor? Motion's carried. Moving on to any business arising from those special council minutes of April 8th. Anyone have anything that you want to bring up? Seeing none, I'm going to move on. Oh,
Actually,
Councillor Elliott.
Gary, one of the things that came up in the last meeting was about the focus group for the OCP update. Is that we talked about one of the top priority for me at the election period was updating our community plan, and you know, it's a year, 8 months into our term, and we're still getting to the vision statement. And what I'm concerned about is that we're a focus group. It seems kind of like there's no term, there's no deadline, there's no objective that needs to be nailed down in a certain, you know, there's no measurables. So I know we talked about a task objective or a task force or task group rather than a focus group. It was just semantics, but I just think it's really important that we nail this down and get, you know, I don't want another whole hand-holding session. I just need an objective, something concrete that we're going to get out of this.
Councillor Charlotte, you'd like to weigh in?
Yeah, my understanding of the conversation at the last meeting there between focus group and task group, I think one of the things that I understood was that the focus group is working under the consultant. So it's the consultant that's in charge of the output from this project to get this vision wrapped up quickly. And she does have solid deadlines and work to be completed because this is wrapping up a project that's been ongoing versus, so the focus group is really supporting that work rather than trying to drive it. And I think trying to look at doing a task force instead of a consultant would be getting too many chefs in the kitchen right now. I think she's more than capable to just wrap this up.
Any further comment, Councillor Elliott?
Yeah, I don't, you know, focus group to me seems like it's, you know, it doesn't seem the objectives are nailed down. And I think we should be determining if we want a deadline by December 31st of 2020, then that should be their job. Come up with a refreshing on our vision and our mission statement. That should be the objective. Let's nail this down and get it driven to that point. A focus group doesn't have that same concreteness that I'm trying to get to.
Good. I appreciate that. The focus group will come up with some parameters as far, or the consultant will come up with some parameters for the focus group to get this done as quickly as possible. We chose this route because it's not costing any extra money other than the contract that was put out in 2019. So I think this was the prudent way to go. It's going to be done. We're not just throwing it to the wind and saying, hey, just go with it and, you know, in a couple of years, come back with it. They are concise. They're going to be to the point, and we're going to see this come quicker than probably what you're expecting. So I'm appreciative of that work as the consultant moves forward. So any other business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, I'm going to move on now to announcements from the mayor. So some of you may notice another person in your screen on the top right-hand corner. It's our new Director of Corporate Administration, Curtis Slingerland. Welcome to Revelstoke. Welcome. This is your council sitting in front of you. So thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the job, especially under the circumstances the whole world is in at the moment. Welcome, Curtis.
Thank you, Your Worship. I look forward to serving Mayor and Council and supporting Don and getting to know you all in the near future.
Great. Thanks again, and we look forward to a good meeting. I'm going to move on now to item 9A, bylaws. There is a motion on the table. I would like some councillor to put that first motion on the table, have it seconded, and then we're going to have a verbal presentation by Ms. McCabe. Councillor Rind.
That the 2020 tax rate bylaw number 2268 be read a first, second, and third time.
And seconded by Councillor Shirlette. Let's go right to the presentation. Ms. McCabe, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. So before you is the 2020 tax rate bylaw. As you know, staff have been working hard to find ways that Revelstoke can help the businesses and residents with tax and utility payments. One of those ways is before you in the tax rate bylaw. It proposes to move the due date and penalty date for property taxes from July 2nd to September 2nd for all properties, providing property owners with an additional 2 months. This bylaw also gives the city the ability to collect the taxes for not only its own use, but it also provides the money required for the operation of the CSRD, BC Assessment, the Okanagan Regional Library, and the Municipal Finance Authority. As you're all aware, the province pushed the penalty date for commercial properties to October 1st. However, they did not move the due date for property taxes and do not recommend municipalities change it. Instead, the provincial and federal governments have provided a number of different financial supports to residents and businesses to help them pay their expenses, including their property taxes. These higher levels of government recognize that the services municipalities provide are essential and must continue. The staff have worked tirelessly to find ways to shift the city's cash flows forward 2 additional months to assist the residents and businesses of Revelstoke through this difficult time. This is beyond what the province has recommended, but staff feel it is important for Revelstoke to be able to provide this relief to its residents and businesses. Any questions?
Thanks, Ms. McCabe. I just want to make a statement before councillors weigh in. Normally, I wait for everyone to weigh in, but I just want to say thank you to you and your staff for doing this. This is kind of what council was looking for. We're going over and above what the provincial government has asked us to do. We're giving a little more to the community in addition to what the province is doing for the commercial business. We're pushing it back that 2 months. We've already put in the revenue anticipation bylaw, and so I think we're in good stead with this sort of thing. I'm appreciative of all the work that's being done, but also we're saying to the community, listen, we understand the hardships. We're doing what we can to make it better for everyone. So Councillor Rind had her hand up. Do you want to weigh in now?
Yeah. Yesterday, the province announced that they'd be allowing municipalities to borrow interest-free from their capital reserves. I'm curious if that's the case, why then we would have interest charges, or is there other rules that I'm not understanding?
Sorry, through your worship, our capital reserves are all invested in long-term investments that are set to mature at different times over the next 5 years. And so we will be using those investments that come due this year to support the cash flow. However, there's not enough coming due this year, and so we have to borrow to cover that shortfall.
So we are using as much as we can at a tax-free rate, and then the rest will come from this additional loan. So that calculation, when was it 12 million, or sorry, necessary 6 million? Is it the 6 or the 12?
So my cash flow projections are showing that we could potentially need as much as $6 million at some point during this period of time for cash flows. And so that would be what we would be borrowing.
Okay. Okay.
So I just want to weigh in here, Councillor Rind. We get a higher percentage of interest on our investments than we do on what we're able to borrow the money at. So it's prudent for the community to see us borrow some of this money and keep our money invested. So we're going to be saving in the long run by actually borrowing the money versus cashing in some of these dividends.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm curious about defaults on property taxes and whether or not that's been built into our budgets, or if we expect higher default rates.
Ms. McCabe?
Through your worship, so it's the collection process as much as default. So most municipalities are using an expected collection rate of about 50%, and that is what I've used in my cash flows to be conservative. The City of Vancouver did do a survey that they paid for about a week or two ago that showed that about 25% of their taxpayers are expecting to not be able to pay their property taxes by the due date. And so, somewhere between 25 and 50% seems a reasonable number to be using. So that's what most municipalities are using, including me.
What about people who don't pay them at all, like even with a deferral in place?
So the current legislation does allow for that process of collection. It does eventually go to a property tax sale, but that tax sale has been deferred this year by the province. And then, but yes, in years' time, if the taxes are still not paid in 3 years' time, there is a risk of a property tax sale.
Okay, and should we be building that into our budget or no?
It's potential, but I'd like to see whether or not that actually comes to fruition first. But cash flow wise, I have been building it in. Yeah.
So because we've got a lot of our community on the month-to-month program, we're hoping that that ability as to what you're going to see coming forward in the next couple of bylaws here, we're hoping that those who can afford to pay their taxes will pay their taxes and not have to use this method. Yes, there are some people who are going to be devastated by what's going on and not being able to do that. We'd like to work with those one-on-one and see what we can come up to make sure that we're doing the best for all of them. So I think that the message going out to the community is we're not overlooking those who are in that situation. We're going to work with each one individually and see what we can do to make that work. Any further comments? Ms. Lowe, you've got your hand up, and then I'll go back to you, Councillor Rund.
Your Worship, I just would like Tanya to clarify a little bit better about the tax sale. It's not after missing your taxes for 1 year that you would ever be looking at a tax sale. So I think for the public's sake, it's important that they understand it's actually 3 years worth of missed taxes where a tax sale would even be looked at. So I don't want anybody to get nervous about missing their tax payments for 1 year.
That's correct. Mrs. Lowe is correct that you'd have to be 3 years behind before that would happen.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Rund.
So I just wanted to relay a couple points from Cody because I know he couldn't make it today. Just for the public's sake, I also know that we're not really discussing the 6%, which has already been approved, but I wanted to make sure that his comments were heard. He's not very happy with seeing the 6% increase. He's noticed a lot of other municipalities have been cutting back and trimming their budgets from big cities to small towns. Trail has directed staff to work towards a 0% increase for the following year. So he hasn't said that he wants that for Revelstoke, but is just suggesting we look at what's it going to look like next year, what kind of cuts should we be budgeting for. And yeah, he just really didn't want to see that 6% go through. I think he's really keen on putting some kind of motion forward to have action on this tax bill. He mentioned that the difference for some people being able to put the 6% is the difference for some people being able to put food on their table versus having to access the food bank. So I just wanted to make sure that those points were heard in case other councillors wanted to make a motion to reduce that tax.
All right, so I'm going to weigh in a little bit. We've been working on this for 7 or 8 months now, and in the last couple meetings, we've discussed this as far as what we can do for the community. So behind the scenes, I've asked the staff to work hard in figuring out a way that was going to benefit the community. And so the bylaws that are there before you today not only benefit the community, but deal with the situation the city's in. So 4.5% of that 6 is a deficit. We're trying to make up for another 1.5% to deal with some of the projects that we need to deal with in the community that are urgent. These are not selective things. So I think what we've done is the prudent choice, making sure that we make sure that the city moves forward in a way that's constructive. We don't want to add deficit onto deficit onto deficit, and then we're not able to get back out of the hole. And so from my perspective, we've done what's best for the community. I understand where Councillor Juncker is coming from as far as wanting to show the community we're doing more, but I think what we're doing here is the best thing for Revelstoke. I can't comment on what other communities are doing and their financial situation or their deficit or anything like that. It's all great and fine to look at it and say, yeah, 0% works. But if we're going to continue to do that sort of thing and then put our community behind, then we're not doing what's best for the community. And so, as I've just mentioned, we're going to work with each individual tax owner or taxpayer if we need to, and move forward that way. And I think that's the best thing. So go ahead, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thanks for that. I would also agree. I just wanted to make sure Cody's comments are relayed, but on my personal opinion is that I think reducing a tax rate, reducing our increase right now would be a bit redundant in the kind of financial aid that's being offered. We're seeing the province and the federal government and banks offering lots of forgiveness, and we're also doing that in terms of allowing some kind of delays and breaking up payments and things like that. And as we'll see later, not charging for NSF funds and all that kind of thing. I just think too, it would put us in a bit of a fiscally irresponsible position, because eventually the feds are going to want their money back, and then, you know, we're going to be on the line for whatever else we've offered in terms of the loan.
Good. Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Ms. Lowe.
Your Worship, yeah, I'd like to just get behind what Councillor Ryan is saying too. We were in meetings with the province yesterday, and they definitely are not encouraging even changing the tax date. So that is, like mentioned previously, over and above what other municipalities are doing. Because there are, like Councillor Ryan said, so many other financial backup that the federal and the provincial government are giving, that they understand that the city is an essential service, and they understand that we have to keep moving forward with our operations. So yeah, I'm just supporting what Councillor Ryan said.
Yeah.
Just by being in those meetings with the province, that is what they're encouraging.
I just want to make sure that taxpayers who are watching and who are concerned, you know, realize that if we don't do it now, it's just going to have to happen later. We're really just kicking the can down the road. And do we want to do it now when the federal government and the province are paying attention to businesses and they're actually listening to people, or do we want to do it later when they've bled their coffers and they're, you know, like trying to get their money back by increasing interest rates and taxing the crap out of people?
Yeah,
Sorry.
great. Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Appreciate that input. Councillor Charlotte.
Yeah, I completely agree. I understand where Cody's come from with the concerns, and I am really looking forward to our 2021 budget process. We've already been talking about how our budget process is improving every year, every time we go through it, and I think that this is going to be an interesting discussion as we go forward into this. But like you both have said, this is a national health crisis, and it's the national coffers and the national reserves that are going to help us get through this. Our job is to be really good stewards of our infrastructure here and our community's shared quality of life. So the work that we're doing, I think, is important to that. So.
Thanks, Councillor Charlotte. Any further discussion on the motion that's on the table? Councillor Brookshill and Councillor Elliott.
So first of all, to get back to the motion that's on the table, I fully support this deferral and deferral of property tax payments to September 2nd and the deferral of the tax penalties. I think that's really important. And I really like that we're encouraging people to come and talk to the city and figuring out solutions. I think that's really probably the most important part of it. If people, you know, everyone's situation is different. Not everyone is being affected financially by this. You know, the trains are still running, Downey's still operating for now, and hopefully into the future. But for sure, there's a huge segment of our population that is being affected. And so having some kind of flexibility to address the needs for the people who are being directly affected, I think is the most important thing we can do.
Great, thank you for that. Councillor Elliott.
I agree with Mike. The motion on the table is about the incentives we can offer and help we can offer for people who need to pay. And that element I'm in agreement with. Cody's topic about the 0% reduction, for zero tax for this year, that was suggested a month ago and we voted that in. I did, yeah. So I think that's something I had to swallow at the time. I wasn't particularly pleased that we were going sticking with the 6%. I think what was mentioned about the province and the feds contributing as much as they can, they're going to find. I think the municipality has to do their part as well. And you know, I'm still not in favor of the 6% increase, and I have a hard time swallowing that. I think everyone's hurting right now. I know the railway's working, and Downey's still under production for now, but there's 40 to 50% of our town, hotels, restaurants are really in desperate shape, and that transfers down to the homeowner. So and it should be transferring to our city. So we should be looking at ways to be efficient and minimize our costs as much as we can, and looking for ways to help our citizens. Yeah, so Cody's message is I'm in agreement with, but I guess we're on the path now that we've accepted that.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Elliott. I appreciate that input. Yes, we've passed that tax bylaw already. What we're doing now is just doing what we can do for the community and moving that forward. We will, in subsequent council meetings moving forward, see the state of the nation as far as what's happening with our community from a financial perspective, with closures and with income coming in, and how we're dealing with that. So we're going to see those sorts of things come forward too. And looking at everything at this point in time, I just encourage you to support this bylaw as we move forward. I think it's going to be the best for the community, and our staff is working hard to look at other ways to deal with projects and deal with financial resources as we move forward. So any other comments on the motion that's on the table? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Okay, the motion is carried. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the second 9A number 2, adopting this bylaw. Councillor Brooks Hill.
That the 2020 tax rates bylaw number 2268 be adopted.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Sherlett, any discussion on the motion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Oh, Councillor Elliott, are you opposed or in favor?
This was that we agreed to the 6%. Is that what I'm gathering?
That's already been dealt with a meeting ago. This is dealing with the motion that's just adopting the
alternative
penalties and the basically moving it back. Yep. So
yeah, I'm in favor.
Okay, everyone's in favor. So note that, Ms. LaRose. We're going to move on to item 9B. I'll ask for someone to put that motion on the table and then and get a seconder, and then we're going to get Ms. McCabe to present on that. Someone want to put that on for me? Councillor Sherlett, if you'd read that, please.
That City of Revelstoke Alternative Tax Collection Scheme Amendment Bylaw number 2271 be read a first, second, and third time.
There's a seconder for that motion, please. Councillor Brooks Hill. Ms. McCabe, do you have a presentation on that?
Just a few comments, Your Worship. So this is similar to the deferral of the property tax due date. It's deferring or allowing people that are on the city's alternative tax scheme to defer their monthly payments for the months for one or all or as many of the months from April to August as they feel they need to manage their cash flows.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan, do you have a comment?
Yeah, is there any way that we could do it for more than 2 months, or is 2 months, is that chosen for a reason?
I believe it's 4 months. It's April, May, June, July, or even 5, including August as well, Ms. McCabe. So it's 5 months.
Okay, I don't know where I got to then. Sorry.
Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Motion's carried. Moving on to adopting that item number 2. Someone want to read that, please? Councillor Brooks Hill.
That City of Revelstoke Alternative Tax Collection Scheme Amendment Bylaw number 2271 be adopted.
And Councillor Charlotte, you had your hand up. Are you seconding that motion? Yes, seconded by Councillor Charlotte. Any further discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. This is adopted. Thank you very much, Council. Moving on to item C, number 1. Someone want to read that regarding fees and charges? Councillor Elliott, please unmute your mic.
That the fees and charges amendment bylaw 2270 be read first, second, and third time.
Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Brooks Hill, you had your hand up first, so thank you for that. Do you want to do a presentation, Ms. McCabe, or say anything regarding that?
I think this one's fairly straightforward, Your Worship. It's just waiving, so if somebody does have their payment refused by the bank, that we will not have to charge them the $35 NSF fee that we currently charge.
Great. Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, I'm just curious, what happens if there are several transactions with one person where there are a bunch of NSF transactions? Does that cause any administrative pain for the city, or?
It does create some administrative work. However, it's felt that we can handle that and that this is just another option for helping the residents of the city.
Yeah, okay. I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Any further discussion on this motion on the table? Councillor Charlotte.
Yeah, just a quick comment that this one I think is really stepping up where, yeah, we can handle a little bit more admin to help our community out and not add to the burden that we're already doing. Deferring the payments later is one thing. We still have to pay those. This is something we don't need to charge. So thank you very much for doing that.
Any further comments on the motion on the table? Seeing none, I'm going to ask the question. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Motion's carried. Thank you. We're going to go on to the adoption of this bylaw. If someone would like to read that for me, please. Councillor Elliott.
That the fees and charges amendment bylaw 2270 be adopted.
And Councillor Brooks Hill, you had your hand up. Are you seconding that motion? Yes, you are. Okay. Any discussion on the adoption of this bylaw? Seeing none, I will ask the question. Please raise your hand. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. I appreciate all your work, and thank you, Ms. McCabe and your staff for working hard to put this forward to take care of our community at this time. Much appreciated. We're going to move on to 11A staff reports, engineering, and so I'll ask for someone to put this motion on the table and second it. Councillor Ryan.
That the 4th Street Victoria Road Townley Street Roundabout project be awarded to Eagle Rock Construction in the amount of $4,559,000, excluding applicable taxes.
There's a seconder for that motion. Councillor Charlotte. Mr. Black, do you want to weigh in or state any public comment on this for people who may not have read about this in our agenda packet?
No, we are very, thank you, Your Worship. We are very pleased to bring this forward at this time. I think it's a good place for the city to be in encouraging construction and employment of people in the city. It's a great opportunity for us to build this project with limited issue to people visiting the community. Hopefully we will be able to accelerate construction because there's limited traffic in the area. And this is going to be a wonderful benefit to the community, reducing traffic impacts, and again, keeping people employed and moving forward in these serious times.
Great, thank you. Any further comment on Councillor
Ryan? For the NRFP document, I was curious in the criteria weightings why the project plan was given more weight than the proposal price. I'm sure there's a good reason. I'm just curious.
Yes, the price is always of interest. However, in this case, we wanted to ensure that the contractors spent the time up front seriously contemplating the sequencing of the construction activities, the impacts to the community, how the detour plan would work, and scheduling to ensure that we were going to finish in a timely manner. And our goal here is to be finished before Labor Day. And
That makes sense.
that was the reason for the heavy weighting on the project planning.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments, Councillor Elliott?
This project, was the funding all done through city coffers, or was it some grant money obtained for it?
Through your worship, thank you, Councillor Elliott. We received a grant in the amount of $5,080,000 roughly dollars to complete this project. We are supplementing it with funds through the roads DCCs, the water, transportation, and transportation infrastructure funding to enhance the project and build the infrastructure in the ground now, so that we won't have to tear up the new pavement for many, many, many years. And so we're going to make sure that we don't have any breaks in the pipes or anything underneath the road before we're done.
Good. Can I carry on?
Yeah, just another question. Go ahead.
Just with the $100 billion that the federal government's contributing to this COVID issue, do you foresee much grant money coming in the future, or is this something we should be worried about?
I'm not certain that through your worship, I'm not certain that worry is the proper term, other than I worry that my staff will not have enough time to develop projects to the point where they're going to be eligible for federal grants if they happen. And so we are currently pursuing projects that we can quickly move to shovel ready, which is what the federal and provincial government will be looking forward to. And so we will be bringing those items forward to council in the following weeks in regard to these opportunities. And we are very excited about that.
Yeah, I just foresee, in the future, the money coming from the federal government or the provincial government will be pretty held a little more tightly at their end for the next little while.
Yeah.
And, one more question. There's some work going on near that traffic circle site. Is that railway reclamation, or what's going on there?
There is no more environmental reclamation required there. There is some track removal that needs to be taken care of, and I believe that we're still expecting the project the real estate transaction to close in the next couple of weeks. Should council approve our recommendation today, we will move forward with a pre-construction meeting early next week, and hopefully the contractor will mobilize immediately and be on site in the next few weeks. In regards to the railroad lands, we will just have to work around that for the couple of weeks before we have the total access to the site.
Anything further? Councillor Ryan?
Yeah, in the report, it mentions that ICBC might have funds to contribute to the project and that the staff has applied for it. I'm curious if we know when we'll be hearing back those results.
We submitted this information to ICBC, I believe, early last week. And so the way this process had developed, our engineers created a drawing of this roundabout. Through iterations of design, it changes slightly and slightly. Part of the review process was to let the ICBC road safety folks have a look at this, and they made some additional recommendations to the drawings. And because of that, they feel that it's even better than it was before. And because of that, it may reduce some accidents. And so we may be able to receive some funds associated with these additional improvements that we're making to the drawings. I don't anticipate that number to be a large component of, or a large percentage of the total project budget, but every bit helps.
Yeah, maybe just enough to change the cost of updating the drawings or whatever.
Yes, and
that's cool.
That much. And so
Awesome.
I'm hopeful that it's slightly more than that, but maybe 10% of the project budget would be nice.
That's awesome.
Great. Any further comments on the motion on the table? Councillor Ryan.
I just was at the end of the report, it mentions that the project cost, the total funds available is 5,419,000, but the project costs are estimated at 5.319. What's anticipated for that extra 100,000?
We are actually suggesting that the project budget will be 100,000 less than the funds that are available.
So in that instance, because so much of it is grant funded, what happens to that money?
That will be returned to the funds that they came from. And so
Okay.
we will expend the project grant funds as best we can first, and then consume the city components last. And whatever funds are left will then return to the respective funding pools.
Okay. And I also noticed there's about $860 or so thousand of contingency and consultants. Do you know the approximate breakdown of what that is?
Typical project of this nature, you would have roughly 10% of the project as a contingency, and the consulting fees are on the order of $250,000 for this.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Any further discussion on the roundabout before I call a question? Councillor Elliott, unmute your mic, please.
Councillor Black, sorry, Stephen, just curious, what's your experience? Is there much likelihood that these will going over budget? Is it more the norm or the exception?
In this case, we have very highly developed drawing set. So the opportunity here for unforeseen changes to the contract and to the project scope are lesser and lesser due to the high level of drawings that we have. I wish I could say with certainty that we will not go over budget. However, we do have a healthy contingency fund, and I'm hopeful that I won't be coming back to you in the future.
Okay.
Councillor Ryan, another question?
Yeah, in instances like this where the contractor is aware that we have such a large contingency, is there no way of making that contingency, I guess because it's all public, we just have no choice. But it just seems like if contractors are aware that this exists, then their change orders are going to be much more, you know, I don't know, inflated. But that's
Your worship, Councillor Ryan, the contract is awarded to what the contractor has submitted as his fee. And therefore, if he desires or needs to have more money, it goes through a change order request process, which is vetted through our consultant and staff as to the validity of that. And so if we had a drawing package that was not as advanced as these, I feel the opportunity for those change order requests would be more significant and there would be more opportunity for that. However, the contract that you are awarding is for what he has estimated the contract for.
Awesome.
And so the additional contract amounts would go through a process to award.
It's not so simple that they can just slip in extra dollars, and that's the reason we go through this vetting process to pick our contractors. So I think we're good moving forward. Any further questions before I call a question on the motion? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? This is passed unanimously. Thank you. Thank you all, councillors. Thank you, Mr. Black. I appreciate that. Just one other comment. This morning on my radio show, the radio host, Mr. Ackleline, would love to name this roundabout and has come up with the name, the Townley Roundly. And so we'll have a competition maybe as to somebody coming up with better names. Anyway, a bit of humor in dealing with some important business. Okay, thank you all for your time today. We will be moving forward all these bylaws as they have been passed and putting them all in motion now for the benefit of our entire community. I'm now going to ask for a termination of the meeting. Councillor Ryan, seconded by Councillor Elliott. All those in favor? Motion's carried. This meeting is terminated. Thank you all for your time. Until next time, thank you.